In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
The earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep.
And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good.
And he separated the light from the darkness.
When he created man, he saw the capacity for this same light.
And this same darkness.
Then he sent one man in the world to be the light of the world.
And we killed him.
But a new morning dawns in the truth of the resurrection.
But how does a small group of simple men from Jerusalem
Become the faith of 1/3 of the earth's population?
How does a flighty, impulsive fisherman
Become the leader of a revolution? When the flames at Pentecost spread like wildfire and the church grows by 3,000 in an afternoon.
But the Jewish leaders are irate, and the Romans are suspicious. They must be silenced. Stephen is murdered by stoning under the approving gaze of a man named Saul.
Until Saul is blinded by the light on his way to Damascus and becomes the Apostle Paul, the first of many hearts transformed and inspired to transform the world. But he is not content to spread the light at home, but to any and all who will listen. These Christians refuse to stay silent with their good news.
The Roman Emperor Nero finds a scapegoat to blame for his failures.
James, Peter, and Paul.
Killed, crucified, beheaded. Killing Christians becomes a sport and a spectacle in the Roman Colosseum, and crucified Christians are set fire to light up Nero's gardens at night.
But many Roman citizens are moved by the faith of the Christian martyrs and begin to meet them in the underground catacombs.
Another emperor claims the sun god Apollo tells him to hunt down and murder every Christian in the Mediterranean.
But within 10 years, Christianity becomes the primary religion in the Roman world, and the new emperor Constantine has a transformation of his own. The days of Roman persecution are over.
But with this free flow of religion and ideas comes confusion and uncertainty. What is truth?
The Universal Catholic Church is the answer. And the New Testament canon is formed in a spirit of unity.
But protection of this unity is the breeding ground for division. East versus west, church versus state.
Well, a small group of men seek a simpler walk with God, and Augustine's Confessions tell an honest story of a heart transformed.
But there's a grander vision of a transformed empire, and with crosses on their shields and the blessings of the Pope, the Crusaders head out to reclaim Europe for Christ in a bloodbath.
The leadership of the church began with a simple fisherman and his friends.
How did it become an insatiable institution?
This is a question many would ask as they would make their way to their beloved places of worship.
And those who chose to speak up were interrogated and burned as heretics.
A small group of friars roam the countryside and share their faith through logic and persuasion rather than the sword. Among them is another heart transformed, Francis of Assisi, who offers up a simple prayer. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace.
Where there is hatred,
let me so love.
where there is injury,
pardon.
where there is doubt,
Faith.
where there is despair,
Hope.
where there is darkness.
Light.
But while the institution is bound in the darkness of a courtroom,
God's plan of light cannot be extinguished in the hearts of his children as one man's invention meets another man's interpretation, making the word of God accessible to the masses. They can now read, interpret, and think for themselves.
and William Tyndale is labeled a heretic, strangled, and burned at the stake.
But yet, another heart is transformed as a common German friar also translates the Bible and cannot keep the good news to himself.
After witnessing the buying and selling of indulgences, salvation only for those who can afford to buy it,
Luther nails his theses to the door of the church and begins the Reformation.
civil wars break out all across Europe over which faith will prevail. What truth is truth? Christians killing Christians in the name of God, neighbors killing neighbors in their homes, all for the cause of a united faith.
But two countries take on a different mission from God, a quest to explore the new world and share their faith. The light is spreading.
But with this new comfort comes the lure of superiority, and the temptation of wealth leads to the inconceivable.
Forgetting the legacy of freedom from the Exodus and triumph over Roman oppression.
The oppressed now become the oppressors. The former slaves now bear the whip.
True followers of Christ are horrified and seek new ways to shed a beacon of light. John Wesley finds a method in the madness, and suddenly a field, a backyard, even a tavern become places of worship. Thus begins the Great Awakening.
True Christ followers are no longer content to stay by the light at home. They actively seek out the dark places across the globe.
Missionaries travel into unknown territory, and this time, not just with men from the pulpit, but a woman's touch in the classroom and by the beds of the sick and the dying.
Back home, African slaves sit and listen and learn outside tent revivals and hear the echo of their own cry for freedom coming from the book of Exodus, yearning for their own promised land.
A light shines in the darkness of the night as they steal away to their secret places of worship, alerting each other in codes and lilting melodies.
They encounter a new sort of darkness in the hearts of men that goes far beyond any proclamation. Suddenly, the preachers of God's love and equality become messengers of hate and fear.
But there were many who would combat this darkness with the message of love, as the inventions of television and radio would become new tools for the gospel.
But religion isn't the only message that spreads quickly across the airwaves, and people head to the church for comfort.
Another great leader emerges with the dream of racial harmony. The words of Jesus to turn the other cheek as a mantra for nonviolent protest at all costs.
He leads his people to a promised land he would not live to see.
In our century, we have seen the light in the healing hands of Mother Teresa.
And the darkness of religious scandals.
And here we are, a 25-year-old church full of transformed hearts that want to spread a light in our community and across the globe.
So the question remains in us. What will the future of the church look like?
What legacies do we carry on?
What lessons do we learn in the failures?
Looking back as we look ahead.
To see a pattern in the dark moments.
To hear the call of the martyrs.
Because pride and conceit always come when we get comfortable.
But Jesus called us to be a people of light, hearts transformed.
That seek out the dark places and aren't content to keep it to ourselves.
What will be the next chapter in the story?
Who will build the future of the church?
What will these followers of Jesus do next?
It's not a wondering question to ask.
Because we are the answer.
And the world is waiting.